Hello coin collectors out there, welcome back to the Big D Coins channel. As you see in front of you, I've got a selection of Canadian 1-cent coins, also known as the penny. As you know, mostly on this channel we share United States coins, but every once in a while I like to mix it up and make a video for our friends up north about Canadian coins. And I do live in Maine, so relatively close to Canada. Got a lot of Canadian tourists that come down to the area where I live in, so I get a lot of these Canadian pennies in coin rolls. I would say about 1 in every 3 rolls of pennies that I look through will have a Canadian penny in them. I wish that it had the same ratio for wheat pennies, but nonetheless, I get Canadian pennies and then set them aside because the coin return machines at my credit union will not accept them for the most part. So all of these coins that you see right here have been collected through coin roll hunting. The 2 years that I'm missing in the 1960s decade is 1960 and 1966. Those 2 years have very small mintages, as we'll discuss a little bit later in the video. So that's why I haven't just come across them yet, but maybe I will soon. It's also going to be important to talk about the different designs that we see here with the Canadian penny. When you're looking at it right here, you can see that there's clearly 2 different designs right here for the reverse. This one right here is a commemorative coin, which we'll talk about. But there's also a different design change for the obverse. So when we flip this one over right here, which is the 1964, and then we flip this one over right here, which is the 1965, we can see that Queen Elizabeth II has aged quite a bit between 1964 and 1965, because they switched up the portrait of her. So prior to 1965, from 1953 until 1964, Queen Elizabeth II will have the first portrait of her on the obverse of the coin. So this one right here, I'll zoom in a little bit for you. So this portrait of her is her at age 27, and that's what's known as the first portrait. The portrait right here to the right, that's what's known as the second portrait, and that is her at age 39. So she has aged 12 years between these 2 coins. Some other interesting facts about the Canadian pennies: they are all going to have 98% copper, 0.5% tin, and 1.5% zinc for the years that we're looking at here. So that metal content was used from 1942 until 1977, so it covers the years we are looking at. The more modern Canadian coins have switched over to a mostly steel, a 94% steel, 1.5% nickel, and 4.5% copper. However, if you're looking for a real recent version of these Canadian coins, you will not find them. That is because Canada discontinued their coins, as you've probably heard me say multiple times on this channel. Let me clarify that. They discontinued the penny making, their 1-cent coins. So the last 1-cent coin was minted March 29th, 2012. The Canadian Mint estimated that about 600 pennies per household were being hoarded and not spent in circulation because the metal content of the coin was worth so much more than the actual face value of the coin itself. So then in March 29, 2012, they stopped producing them. A little bit later that year, they started to take them out of circulation and melt them down back to their copper in their steel or whatever year they were actually made. Now there is another design change that I want to talk about. So prior to 1953, we didn't have Queen Elizabeth II on the obverse of the coins. We had this gentleman right here, George VI. So George VI, this one is dated 1952. So this will be the last year that George VI appeared on the Canadian penny. Then we switch over to Queen Elizabeth II, starting right here. So I'm going to now discuss the mintages for these particular coins. We're going to start with the set that was made from 1960 until 1964. So 1960, the year that I am missing, the mintages on that year are just 75 million. Then we bump up to 139 million, 227 million, 279 million, 484 million in 1964. Now what's pretty interesting is that generally my coins actually reflect the amount that were produced. So 1964, I've got two of them right here. This year is relatively high, 1963, which is pretty accurate as well. So 279 million made in 1963. I've got a lot of 1963s. So that fits right in line. The 1964, very high mintage as well. Then we move on to 1965. So this coin right here was made from 1965 until 1979. There was a break in 1967 to make way for this commemorative coin down here. But for the most part, let's talk about these ones first, and then we'll get into the commemorative coin a little bit later. So as far as the penny that was made in starting in 1965, let me get you the mintages on that. So 1965, 304 million. The year that I'm missing, 1966, only 183 million. Then they bump back up to 329 million in 1968, 335 million in 1969. Again, these ones will have Queen Elizabeth II on them, the second portrait of her. And finally, the third penny in the Canadian Pennies from 1960 series is this one right here. Let me actually use a better one as an example. So this one right here, the most noticeable feature about this particular coin is that it features a rock dove in flight on the reverse of the coin. So this coin was made just in 1967. It's a circulating commemorative coin made to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Canada. Canada became a country, as you see at the bottom down here, in 1867. So this coin in 1967 celebrated that bicentennial. We see 1 cent at the top, a rock dove in flight in the very center. We flip it over, we see the same portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. This is the second crown portrait of Queen Elizabeth II. It's her at age 39. And as far as the mintages of this coin goes, there are 345 million. So that makes this the second highest mintage in the entire video that we're looking at right here. The highest mintage is actually back in 1964. So as I said, the 1964 had a mintage of 484 million. So this one right here will be the most common that you come across. This one right here, the second most common that you come across as far as Canadian pennies from the 1960s. The two rarest ones, the two hardest to find, are the ones that I don't have, which are going to be 1960, in which there are only 75 million made, and 1966, in which there are 183 million of them made, as well as 1961, in which there are 139. So I guess that's kind of a top three. 1960, 75 million, 1961, 139 million, and then 1966, 183 million. All right, everyone, that's all I've got for today. As you can see, I've got a mess of Canadian pennies that I've got to now put back away, but that's the fun part of it. I'm glad you enjoyed watching this video if you stuck around to the very end. If you have any recommendations for videos to make, feel free to let me know. Thank you very much, everyone, and best of luck coin collecting out there. Enjoy!